Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're the place you come to get complex academic stuff broken down into something, well, usable.
That's the goal.
And, if you're listening, chances are you know the feeling. Or someone you know does. That academic inertia, the blank screen, the unopened textbook, it just sits there. And it feels like more than just, putting things off.
It really is. It can feel like a genuine crisis of academic drive.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into something really critical, but honestly often misunderstood. It's problem 7, lack of motivation to study.
Yeah, and we've really dug into a whole range of sources, academic journals, psych studies, educational research, to try and build a structured understanding for you.
Our mission today is basically to cut through the usual advice.
Yeah.
We're not just going to say try harder.
Definitely not.
We want to define this thing clearly, unpack the real roots, psychological, environmental look at the symptoms, how it shows up, and then
And this is the crucial part.
give you a solid, evidence-based toolkit, things you can actually use to hopefully spark that enthusiasm again.
And we absolutely have to start with definition. Because, like with anything, if you misdiagnose it...
You're not going to fix it.
Exactly. So the lack of motivation, academically speaking, it's defined as a student's inability or maybe unwillingness to really engage meaningfully, consistently with their studies,
Right.
even though they actually have the capacity, the intelligence to do the work well.
That's the key, isn't it? That distinction.
It's pivotal.
This isn't about lacking ability. It's not about intelligence level. We're talking about people who are capable, but they're missing that psychological fuel, that inner drive, a sense of purpose, maybe just enthusiasm. It's needed to start, sure, but more importantly, to keep going.
Right.
It's like you have the car, you know the destination, but the tank's empty.
That's a perfect analogy. Motivation is that psychological fuel for any kind of purposeful action.
So when it runs low...
Well, you get inconsistency. And that kicks off a really nasty cycle, doesn't it? Grades start slipping.
Which leads to frustration.
Frustration, self-doubt, and eventually the student just emotionally checks out from learning altogether.
And that can look exactly like laziness from the outside.
It can, but the internal mechanism, psychological root, is completely different.
Okay, so let's unpack that fuel tank failure. Why does it happen? Our sources seem to group the causes into, like, 3 main buckets, right?
Yeah.
They're all connected, though.
That's right. You've got the internal psychological stuff, barriers inside the mind. Then there are the external pressures, environment, social factors, and finally, foundational things, lifestyle, emotional well-being.
Makes sense. We probably need to start inside the mind, then. These internal blocks seem like they stop things before they even begin.
I think so. And perhaps the most common one, that first cognitive barrier, is simply an absence of goal clarity.
Meaning?
Well, studying inherently involves delayed gratification, right? You put in effort now for a payoff later.
Yeah.
If a student can't clearly picture that payoff, whether it's short-term, like really getting Newton's second law, or longer-term, like how this course fits into a career plan, then the immediate discomfort of studying just feels pointless.
Okay. So if the reward down the road is vague or fuzzy.
The brain just defaults to what feels good now. Why go through the effort, the discomfort, for a maybe reward you haven't even properly defined?
That makes a lot of sense.
And if that lack of clarity goes on and maybe gets combined with some negative experiences in school, then you can slide right into something really quite debilitating. Learned helplessness.
Learned helplessness. That sounds bad. Like a psychological quicksand. How does that develop in school? How does it trap someone?
It usually comes from repeated failure in academics, or sometimes just the feeling of failure, even if it wasn't objectively terrible, especially if the student feels like those failures were totally out of their control.
So it's a cycle.
Exactly. The student tries, maybe puts an effort, but they fail or get a bad mark. They try again, same result. After a while, they internalize this belief. It doesn't matter what I do. My effort makes no difference.
So they just stop trying. That
Yeah.
passive disengagement, refusing to even start, it's a kind of self-defense.
Precisely. Why expose yourself to the pain of effort if you genuinely believe the outcome is already set and it's going to be negative?
You conclude effort and success aren't linked for you.
Right. So the logical thing seems to be conserve your energy.
Yeah.
Stop banging your head against the wall.
Which leads us, you said, to something related but different. Low self-efficacy.
Yes, and this is crucial. It's from Bandura's work, Social Cognitive Theory. We need to be really clear. Low self-efficacy is not the same as low self-esteem.
Okay, good distinction. How are they different?
Well, self-esteem is broad. It's how you feel about your overall worth. I'm a good person. I'm smart. Self-efficacy is specific to a task.
Ah,
It's your belief in your own ability to actually do the specific things required to succeed at a particular task or situation.
so someone could have high self-esteem, generally I'm capable, but low self-efficacy for, say, writing a massive research paper.
Exactly. They might think, I'm smart enough, but they doubt their ability to actually do the steps. The research, the organizing, the drafting, sticking with it.
Okay. So they doubt their ability to execute.
That's it. Students with low self-efficacy for academic tasks, they doubt they can organize themselves, focus, persist when it gets tough.
So what happens?
They feel intense anxiety just thinking about starting, and so they often just don't start, which leads to chronic avoidance. That's a huge sign of a motivation problem.
And that links up with Carol Dweck's work too, doesn't it? The fixed mindset, believing your abilities are set in stone.
Directly. If you have a fixed mindset, you believe intelligence is just something you have or don't have, and it doesn't change much.
So effort becomes risky.
Effort becomes evidence against your intelligence. The thinking goes, if I have to try really hard, it must mean I'm not actually smart. So, naturally, they avoid challenging tasks. Why risk exposing the supposed lack of fixed ability? This dramatically cuts their motivation to put in the hard, deep work needed for real learning and growth. It's like intellectual self-sabotage.
So we've got these deep internal barriers, lack of goals, learned helplessness, low self-efficacy, fixed mindset. But sometimes it's just boring, right? A lack of interest or relevance.
Absolutely. You can't discount that. I mean, the brain is wired for efficiency. It wants to conserve energy.
Makes sense.
If a student genuinely cannot see how, say, advanced algebra connects to anything in their real life, their interests, their future goals, the perceived value of learning, it plummets.
Why bother investing energy in useless information?
Exactly. Intrinsic motivation, the joy of learning itself, just evaporates. The student might still study, but only for the external reasons, like passing the test. And that kind of motivation is pretty fragile. It doesn't last.
Okay, so the internal landscape can be tricky. But what about the outside world? The external forces pushing on students. Let's talk about those environmental and social pressures, starting with parental pressure. The sources warned about focusing too much on grades.
Yeah, this is a really common distortion. When parents focus only on marks or maybe monitor every little thing, micromanage study time, it changes the whole game.
How so?
Learning stops being about curiosity or mastering something cool. It becomes about meeting external expectations, or worse, avoiding disapproval.
So the motivation shifts from internal, I want to learn this, to external, I have to do this to avoid trouble, or I have to do this to get praise, which is basically fear or reward seeking.
Right. And that fear-based or purely external motivation, yeah, it might work for a bit, get compliance in the short term, but it's incredibly unstable. It burns students out fast.
It crowds out their own sense of ownership.
Completely. And another huge external factor is the teacher-student relationship. Learning happens between people.
Right. If that relationship feels cold, or there's no encouragement, no empathy.
The student disengages emotionally. It's almost immediate. Students need to feel, seen, valued, safe.
Safe to make mistakes, maybe.
Definitely. If they see their teacher as just punitive or distant or someone who doesn't notice their effort, only their results, they pull back their emotional investment. Motivation relies heavily on feeling connected, what we call relatedness, and that starves without recognition and empathy.
Then there's the peer group, that subtle, maybe not so subtle pull of peer influence.
Oh, it's immensely powerful. Academic attitudes are almost contagious in social circles.
Really?
Think about it. If a student's main friend group is kind of indifferent or maybe even makes fun of studying hard,
It's in the message.
a strong social signal. Being serious about school is weird or uncool. And the need to belong, especially for adolescents, is incredibly strong. It often just overrides any individual desire to do well or try hard.
The social cost of being a nerd is too high.
Often, yes. They conform to the group norm, even if it means sacrificing their own potential.
And then the modern battlefield, technological distractions. This feels like a constant struggle, delayed rewards of learning versus instant gratification.
It's a huge challenge. We're literally pitting the slow burn of deep learning against algorithms designed by geniuses to grab and hold our attention.
Social media, games.
Exactly. They use sophisticated psychological tricks, unpredictable rewards, constant novelty that give us these instant dopamine hits. Real learning, requires sustained focus, pushing through discomfort for a reward that's often way down the line and maybe less intense.
So the brain naturally gravitates towards the easy pleasure.
It's seeking efficiency and pleasure. It's much harder to maintain that long-term focus for studying when your phone is buzzing with the promise of quick, easy rewards. It's an unequal fight for attention.
Okay, we've covered the mind traps, the external world pressures. What about the third area? Lifestyle and emotional causes. Sometimes the engine just isn't getting basic maintenance.
This is so often overlooked when people talk about academic struggles, but it's fundamental. Basic physiology matters.
Like sleep.
Absolutely. Irregular routines, chronic lack of sleep, eating poorly, not moving your body, these directly impact your cognitive energy levels.
So motivation isn't just mental willpower. You need actual physical energy.
You really do. If your body's running on empty, motivation is often the first system to shut down to conserve resources.
Makes sense.
And similarly, intense emotional stress, whether it's anxiety, maybe undiagnosed depression, problems at home, social drama.
It takes up bandwidth.
A massive amount of mental energy gets diverted from learning towards just coping, emotional survival. There just isn't enough focus left for sustained academic work when your mind is constantly fighting fires elsewhere.
And finally, under this lifestyle banner, this idea of lacking purpose or meaning. Digging a bit deeper than just goal clarity.
Yeah, this is about why you're pursuing the goals you have. Is it purely for external validation? The good grade, the scholarship, making someone proud? Or is there an inner satisfaction, a genuine passion for the subject, the process of discovery itself?
Because the external stuff is temporary.
It's like a sugar high. Gives you a quick boost, but then you crash. Real sustainable motivation, the kind that keeps you going through tough patches, comes from that intrinsic satisfaction, curiosity, passion. If that's missing, motivation is always fragile, always dependent on the next external reward.
Okay, we've really unpacked the why, a lot of complex factors. Now let's shift to the what. How does this lack of motivation actually show up? What does it look like? The sources seem to make a distinction between how the student feels inside and what others see on the outside.
Yes, and seeing both sides is really important if you want to help. From the student's perspective internally, the most obvious sign is probably constant postponement, putting off study tasks.
Procrastination.
Classic procrastination, often justified with, I'll do it later, or I need to be in the right mood. They also feel this deep emotional fatigue or boredom, maybe restlessness whenever they even think about starting academic work.
Like a wall goes up.
Exactly, and you'll often hear them say things like, I'm just not interested, or this is pointless. And there's usually a very clear, consistent preference for doing anything else. Leisure, hobbies, socializing over studying.
So inside, it's resistance, exhaustion, avoidance. What does that translate to externally? What does a teacher or a parent actually observe?
Externally, you see the accountability starting to break down. Teachers notice incomplete assignments or work that's always handed in late. You see minimal participation in class. Students who used to contribute might go quiet. There's often a noticeable decline in performance, even though the teacher knows the student has the potential. They've seen it before.
They're underperforming their ability.
Right. You might also see visible inattentiveness in class, zoning out, looking bored, and sometimes increased absences. Skipping class altogether. These are the measurable outcomes of that internal resistance.
And these symptoms seem pretty consistent across different students, different situations, which makes you think there must be some solid theories explaining why this pattern emerges so predictably.
Absolutely. We need to look at the foundational science here, and a great starting point is always Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
The pyramid. Basic needs first.
Exactly. Maslow's whole point was that motivation isn't just switched on when an assignment appears, it needs a foundation.
You can't focus on higher level stuff if basic needs aren't met.
Precisely. Higher level needs, like the desire for knowledge, understanding, self-improvement, which is what academic motivation is about, they can only really bloom once the more basic needs are satisfied.
Like food, sleep?
Physiological needs, definitely. But also psychological needs, like feeling safe, feeling like you belong, feeling connected. If a student is hungry or exhausted or feels unsafe or excluded at school or home,
Their brain isn't going to prioritize calculus?
not a chance. You can't worry about Pythagoras' theorem if you're worried about where your next meal is coming from or if you feel completely alone. Unmet basic needs are like a huge roadblock stopping academic motivation in its tracks.
Okay, so Maslow sets the stage. What else helps explain this? There was Hertzberg's motivation hygiene theory. That sounds relevant for distinguishing fixes.
Hertzberg's work is incredibly useful here, from 1959, but still so relevant. He made this crucial distinction between factors that prevent dissatisfaction and factors that actually create motivation.
Okay, what's the difference?
He called the dissatisfaction preventers hygiene factors. Think things like decent working conditions, fair rules, maybe even okay grades or avoiding punishment. You need these things to stop people being actively unhappy or demotivated.
So they keep you from quitting, maybe, but don't make you love the job.
Exactly. They don't generate real, lasting, positive motivation. That comes from what Hertzberg called motivators, things like a sense of achievement, recognition for doing well, responsibility, growth, and the enjoyment of the work itself. Intrinsic factors.
So if a school just focuses on grades and rules hygiene factors.
They might keep students from dropping out, they might ensure a minimum level of compliance, but they aren't actually building that deep internal drive. They're preventing misery, not creating passion.
External pressure is temporary fuel. Internal interest is the high-octane stuff.
That's a brilliant way to put it. Which brings us very neatly to the real cornerstone of modern motivation research, self-determination theory, or SDT, Deci and Ryan's work from the mid-'80s.
SDT. This seems to come up a lot. It gives a clear recipe for that internal fuel, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What are the key ingredients?
It really does provide a roadmap. SDT argues that all humans have three fundamental psychological needs. For intrinsic motivation, that internal drive to flourish, especially in learning, these three needs must be met reasonably well. If anyone is consistently thwarted, motivation tends to collapse.
Okay, what are the three?
First is autonomy. This is a feeling of having some control, some choice, some volition over what you're doing. Feeling like you're the driver, not just a passenger being told exactly what to do, when, and how.
So feeling forced kills motivation.
It crushes autonomy, which then crushes intrinsic motivation. You get compliance, maybe, or resentment, but not genuine engagement.
Makes sense. What's number two?
Second is competence. This is the feeling that you can be effective, that you can handle challenges, that you can learn and grow. It ties right back to Bandura's self-efficacy. It's not just about being smart, it's about feeling capable and seeing that your efforts lead to improvement and mastery.
So you need to feel like you're getting better at it.
Exactly. And third is relatedness. This is the need to feel connected to others, to feel cared for, and to care for others, to belong.
Ah, the social piece.
Crucial. This is why that teacher-student relationship is so vital and why positive peer groups matter. Learning doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's fundamentally social. We need to feel connected, to feel motivated.
So when the sources talk about things like too much control or too much external pressure crushing motivation, they're basically describing how these three needs, autonomy, competence, relatedness, get systematically undermined.
That's precisely what's happening. Often, systems prioritize control and external results over fostering these core psychological needs.
And there's data backing this up. You mentioned some research.
Oh, absolutely. The NSERT research from 2022, cited in our sources, gives a pretty stark picture, especially for older students.
What did it find?
It found over 45%, nearly half of senior secondary students reported struggling to sustain their motivation. But the important part is why.
Right.
The study pointed specifically to two things. Academic overload, just too much stuff, leaving no room for real exploration.
Crushing autonomy.
Right. And critically, a limited emotional connection with the subjects.
Undermining relatedness, maybe even competence if you can't connect.
Exactly. When learning feels purely transactional, like just jumping through hoops, that psychological connection, that intrinsic drive, it just snaps.
And conversely, there was that APA study showing the power of intrinsic drive.
Yeah, 2021, this one really quantified the benefit. It found that students who were motivated more by personal interest or wanting to master the material, true intrinsic motivation.
Their why was internal.
Right. They showed 30 to 40% higher persistence on challenging tasks compared to students who were mainly driven by grades or beating others.
Wow, 30–40% is huge.
It's massive because mastery goals, I want to understand this deeply, feed that need for competence and reward effort. Performance goals, I need to get an A, often reinforce fixed mindsets and anxiety.
So the stakes are high here.
Yeah.
If we don't address this motivation crisis,
Right.
what are the long-term consequences? The so what for listeners?
Well, the immediate fallout is obvious. Poor performance, maybe dropping out, but deeper down you see a real loss of structure and self-discipline. The student never learns how to manage themselves effectively.
And emotionally.
There's that downward spiral we talked about, boredom, guilt, frustration that can curdle into chronic stress, anxiety, and eventually a profound sense of helplessness about learning.
That sounds awful.
It is. And maybe the most damaging long-term effect is a reduced lifelong learning orientation. Think about it. If your entire experience of studying was driven by external pressure and grades,
Once that pressure is gone,
why would you ever choose to learn something new independently? You've basically trained your brain to associate intellectual effort with stress and external demands. It can create a real aversion to learning for its own sake later in life.
which almost guarantees career confusion, doesn't it? If you never figured out what genuinely interests you because you were only chasing grades.
How can you possibly make informed choices about a career that aligns with your passions and strengths? You haven't had the chance to explore them.
Okay, the diagnosis is pretty clear and frankly a bit worrying. But the good news is we established motivation isn't just something you have or don't have, it's a skill.
Exactly. It can be cultivated, supported, rebuilt.
So let's get into the prescription. How do we build that skill? Let's start with the individual self-help, reflection-based methods for finding that inner drive again.
Right. And the absolute non-negotiable first step, often the hardest, is to identify the why.
Finding your purpose for studying.
Yes, but this needs to be deeper than just to get a good job. It requires some real, maybe even structured reflection. How does this specific task, this chapter, this assignment connect to something you personally value? A long-term goal, a genuine interest, a skill you want. You have to link the effort to self-actualization, not just ticking a box.
Okay, so find the personal meaning. Once you have a sense of that why, what next? The path still might feel overwhelming.
That's where structure comes in, using basic behavioral principles to make it manageable, which brings us to goal setting and rewards.
Breaking it down.
Exactly. Take those huge, scary tasks like study for finals and break them into tiny, achievable short-term milestones like, today, I will understand the main concept in Chapter 3. That's it. Small wins.
But if someone's already feeling overwhelmed, doesn't making a list of small tasks feel like more tasks? How do you lower that barrier to just starting?
That's where the reward part is key. By setting small, achievable goals, you create opportunities to reward progress.
How does that work psychologically?
When you complete a small task, acknowledge it. Maybe take a short break, listen to a song, whatever works. That small completion gives you a little hit of dopamine, a positive feeling. It creates a feedback loop. Effort, completion, reward, feeling good, more likely to make effort again. You're rewarding the act of showing up and trying, not just the final grade. It builds momentum.
I like that, making progress feel good. And making it visible helps too, right? You mentioned visualization and self-talk, like goal charts.
Absolutely. A simple chart, a checklist, even just crossing things off a list, it makes progress tangible, concrete. Seeing that visual proof of what you've accomplished validates your effort and feeds that crucial need for competence from SDT.
And the self-talk part.
Yeah.
What happens when that inner voice says, I can't do this?
That's when you need active, positive self-talk. Or maybe just realistic self-talk. It's about cognitive restructuring. You notice the negative thought, I'm too tired, I'm too dumb, I'll fail anyway. And instead of letting it shut you down, you replace it with a small, non-threatening commitment.
Like what?
Something like, okay, I feel resistance right now, but I'm just going to try this for 20 minutes, just 20 minutes, then I can see how I feel. It lowers the activation energy needed to start. It bypasses the overwhelming feeling.
Okay, those are internal strategies. What are the learning process itself? How can we make that less demotivating, shifting from passive to active?
Yes, passive learning is the enemy of motivation. Just reading and rereading or highlighting everything, it doesn't engage the brain deeply. Active learning strategies are essential. Things like making your own flashcards, trying to summarize a chapter in your own words without looking, teaching the material out loud even to an empty room, or engaging in real discussions with peers, trying to solve problems together. These force your brain to manipulate the information, connect ideas, which is inherently more interesting and effective for memory. You become a participant, not just a receiver.
Makes sense. The environment matters too, right? Reducing friction, gamification, and study environment design.
Hugely important. First, the physical space. Make it as distraction-free as possible. Tidy, organized, maybe pleasant lighting. Anything that reduces the cognitive load just associated with being there helps. Eliminate decision fatigue about where to sit or what to clear away first.
And gamification, using apps or points.
It can definitely help for some people in some tasks. Using study apps with timers and rewards, setting up point systems for completed tasks, even friendly competitions with study buddies. It taps into our natural desire for challenge, feedback, and achievement. It can make repetitive tasks feel a bit more like a game, injecting some fun.
What about subjects that just feel inherently dull? Or just managing the sheer volume of work in staying balanced?
Two things there. For managing volume and balance, time blocking is really effective.
Scheduling specific blocks.
Yes, scheduling specific, non-negotiable blocks for focused study. And equally important, scheduling specific blocks for breaks, exercise, fun. Knowing you have dedicated time for rest helps reduce guilt and makes the study blocks feel less like an endless prison.
And for the boring stuff.
Use varied learning approaches. If a subject is really dry and text-heavy, don't just rely on reading. Mix it up. Watch a relevant documentary. Find a podcast about it. Draw diagrams. Use colorful mind maps. Try explaining it using an analogy. Engaging different senses and processing styles can break the monotony and keep your brain more alert.
Okay, let's shift to the body and emotions. Emotional and lifestyle adjustments. Optimizing the vessel, you called it.
Can't ignore the foundation. We have to acknowledge the brain-body connection. Motivation isn't just in your head, it's biochemical.
How's
Simple physical activity. Even a brisk 20-minute walk. It's like a direct intervention. It boosts neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin,
which are linked to?
mood, focus, and motivation itself.
Mm.
Exercise is non-negotiable energy and mood management. It's not extra. It's essential for cognitive function.
And dealing with that mental chatter, the distractions, mindfulness.
Yes, mindfulness practice. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just 5 minutes of focusing on your breath or a short guided meditation. It helps you notice distracting thoughts without getting carried away by them. It creates a little space between the urge to procrastinate and actually doing it. It quiets the inner noise that drains motivation.
And the absolute basics.
Can't say it enough. A consistent, healthy sleep routine. Sleep is when your brain consolidates learning and restores energy. And a balanced diet. What you eat directly affects alertness, concentration, and mood. You simply cannot perform well mentally if your body is chronically tired or poorly fueled.
Finally, leveraging other people. Social connection.
Yes, but the right social connection. Actively seek out and plan study sessions with peers who are also positive, focused, and share similar goals.
Not the friends who just want to complain.
Exactly. A supportive study group creates accountability, allows you to explain concepts, which reinforces your own learning competence, and meets that need for relatedness. You're harnessing social energy for motivation, not letting it drain you.
Okay, so that's a lot the student can do. What about the support system? What can teachers and parents do? The external support mechanisms.
Their role is huge, but it needs to be constructive, not controlling. Everything they do should ideally support those SDT needs: autonomy, competence, relatedness.
So feedback, for example.
Crucial. Provide constructive feedback that focuses specifically on effort, strategies used, and improvement rather than just the final grade or raw ability. Praise the process, not just the outcome. I saw you really worked hard on structuring that essay, not just you got a B. This reinforces a growth mindset.
And giving choices.
Absolutely key for autonomy. Encourage student autonomy wherever possible. Let them choose an essay topic from a list. Let them decide how to present a project. Give them some say in their study schedule. Even small choices build that sense of ownership, which fuels intrinsic motivation.
Making it relevant.
Yes, constantly try to integrate real-life learning. Connect abstract concepts to current events, practical problems, things happening in the community. Show them how this knowledge is used in the world. That instantly boosts perceived relevance and utility.
And finally, the classroom atmosphere.
Creating emotional safety. This is paramount. A classroom or home environment where students feel safe to ask questions, make mistakes, and take intellectual risks without fear of judgment or ridicule. Failure needs to be seen as data for improvement, not a catastrophe. That safety is the bedrock upon which intrinsic motivation can actually be built.
Okay, we've covered the theory, the causes, the symptoms, the strategies. Now let's make this super practical. We want to hand you, the listener, some specific tools you can use, like today.
Let's do it. First step, a quick self-assessment worksheet based on everything we've discussed. Grab a piece of paper and just rate yourself honestly on a simple 1 to 5 scale for these questions.
Okay, what are the questions?
First, do I really understand why I'm studying each specific subject? Can I connect it to my own personal goals? 1, not at all. 5, excellence, very clearly. Second, do I generally enjoy the process of learning itself, not just getting the grade at the end? 1, rarely. 5 equals often. And third, can I usually make myself study even when I don't really feel like it? Can I push through that initial resistance? 1, almost never. 5 equals consistently.
Those are really targeted questions. They hit clarity, intrinsic enjoyment, and initiation, don't they? They help you pinpoint where your motivation fuel tank might be leaking.
Exactly. It's about identifying your specific weak spots so you know where to focus your energy.
Okay, what's next in the toolkit?
Try this interactive exercise. I call it my motivation map. It's a visualization tool.
That's interesting. How does it work?
Take a sheet of paper. Draw 3 big circles that overlap in the middle like a Venn diagram. Label the circles. Interest, what topics genuinely fascinate me. Purpose, why is learning this useful or meaningful to me? And strengths, what am I naturally good at or enjoy doing?
Okay, 3 circles. Interest, purpose, strengths.
Now start jotting down subjects, specific tasks, activities, skills related to your studies inside the relevant circles. Some things might fall into 2 circles, hopefully some fall right in that central overlap.
Ah, the sweet spot in the middle.
That's your zone of highest potential intrinsic motivation. The areas where your natural curiosity, your sense of meaning, and your abilities all align.
So the idea is?
Focus your initial energy there. Start with tasks or subjects that fall in or near that overlap. Build some momentum, experience success and enjoyment, feeding competence and autonomy needs. This builds your motivational reserves before you tackle the areas that feel like more of a slog.
Smart. Start where the energy flows easiest. Okay, what about some dead simple habits? Things people can start doing immediately. Minimal effort required. Healthy adaptability habits.
Right, small behavioral tweaks. First, set one specific, tiny academic intention each day. Forget planning a whole week. Just, today, I will read and summarize section 4.1, or today, I will do 3 practice math problems. Make it concrete, small, and achievable. Crossing it off feels good.
Small wins again. Okay, second habit. Ruthlessly manage your digital environment during study time. Limit phone and social media access. Put the phone in another room. Use website blockers if you have to. Technology should be a tool used intentionally for learning or a reward during breaks, not a constant source of distraction. Create friction for distractions. Reduce friction for studying.
Good one. And a third simple habit.
This one's about reflection. At the end of your study session or the end of the day, take 60 seconds to write down one concrete learning you gained.
Not just, I finished chapter 4. No, something like, I finally understand the difference between X and Y, or I figured out a better way to solve this type of problem. Focus on the internal gain, the mastery, the competence boost. This consciously reinforces the value of the effort, shifting focus from task completion to actual learning. You're training your brain to appreciate the intrinsic reward.
I really like that. Reframing success. Finally, maybe some questions listeners can chew on this week. Reflection prompts.
Yeah, some things to mull over. Ask yourself, what subjects or specific study tasks currently make me feel the most engaged? And why? Is it the topic itself? Interest? Do I feel like I have choices? Autonomy? Do I feel like I'm getting good at it? Competence? Does it connect me with others? Relatedness? Pinpoint what works.
Okay, good one. What else?
How does my physical state, sleep, food, stress level directly impact my willingness to even start studying on any given day? Be honest about the brain-body link, and maybe the most powerful one. What might happen realistically if I manage to stay consistent with just one small positive study habit, like that daily intention, or the tech boundaries for just one full week? What tangible difference might I notice in my focus, my mood, or my results? #tech outro.
All right, that brings us towards the end of this deep dive. To quickly recap, we've established that this lack of motivation, it's not some deep character flaw, it's not about ability, it's usually a breakdown in psychological or environmental support systems.
The causes are layered, aren't they? Internal things like fixed mindsets, learned helplessness, external pressures like grade obsession or digital overload, lifestyle factors playing a huge role too.
But the path forward seems clear, grounded in that self-determination theory. We need to actively cultivate those 3 core needs: autonomy, feeling in control; competence, feeling capable; and relatedness, feeling connected.
And crucially, motivation isn't this magical state you just wait for. It's a skill. It needs structure, self-awareness, the right environment. It's something you build.
Even tiny adjustments, like the ones in the toolkit setting, that one daily goal, mapping your motivation zones, they can genuinely start to refuel that psychological tank.
Absolutely. Small steps consistently applied can make a huge difference over time.
So we'll leave you with a final thought to chew on, building on that idea of lifelong learning aversion we discussed.
If our main fuel for learning throughout school is just grades, external validation, avoiding trouble, we're basically training our brains to see intellectual effort purely as a means to an external temporary end, associated with stress.
So the provocative question is, how do we shift that focus, not just for students now, but for ourselves too? How do we make sure the goal isn't just about passing the next test, but about nurturing and sustaining a genuine, deep curiosity and passion for learning itself? Long after the course is over, long after the grades are in.
Something to think about.
Definitely. Reflect on that. Maybe try building your motivation map. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.